Hi everyone, tonight I'll be reviewing Disney's first animated classic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. A landmark in animation, the first cel animated feature ever made. Yes, I know the Prince Ahmed movie was made before this, but I digress. So much of this film is based off of history, but there's so much more to it than that and has far more entertainment value than that. The animation is fantastic. The dwarf's cottage, all the carvings of animals in their furniture, or their little plaque with the miners. It's just so fascinating to look at, and most of the movie's visuals come from here. In the very beginning, we see a classic storybook illustration of a castle, the Evil Queen's castle, and then we see it moving closer and becoming more and more defined. But I think the best animated sequence of the entire movie would have to be the scene in the forest where Snow White is running after the huntsman spares her life. She is very frightened by it, and then her imagination runs wild of her. She sees logs as gators, the trees are attacking her. Just all of this scene is just so thrilling to watch, and the designs, and it's quite exciting too. The characters are more solid than the people give credit for. Snow White might not be as complex as later princesses, but there's something about her kindness, even in this form of, even when she's surrounded by her fears, that makes her very admirable. She worries more about the animals she's frightened than the fact that she was almost killed. She's kind, she's motherly, but she's also very firm with the dwarves, insisting that they go out to wash. On to the dwarves. These characters are so memorable and fun to watch. Now here's what I really find interesting. They all have their one distinct trait. Doc, grumpy, happy, bashful, sleepy, sneezy, dopey. Especially grumpy. But there's more to them than that. We see Grumpy smile when Snow White kisses him. We see him be the first to rush to her aid when he realizes that she's in trouble. We see him cry at the sight of her coffin. This makes the character and the others far more developed than you would expect somebody that's name trait is who they are to be. The animals are also very fun to watch with their loyalty to Snow White and some of their own traits. The turtle is just so slow, but he's just so cheerful and brightens up the mood. The deer have a nice loving relationship with the mother and fawn. Now on to the evil queen. Okay, now this is an interesting villain. Some people see her as vain and boring, but there's more to her than that. I was watching this movie again tonight for the review and saw some things I didn't really think of before. For the most part, she doesn't act like a stereotypical villain at all. Well, her plan, of course, is evil, and we know what she's up to. But she's rather calm, soft-spoken, always seems to be keeping her head. This all changes, though, interestingly enough, when she's in her peddler woman disguise. In a way, you could say when she's in her disguise, she's bringing out her true madness and evil. There's one scene that I'm sure most of you remember when she's going to deliver the apple. She mockingly kicks a pitcher to a skeleton, sarcastically saying, "Thirsty? Have a drink." This complete madness and dark humor was just so absent from the character previously in the film. But because of that, it makes her that much of a threat, showing that how good she is at hiding her madness and cruelty, even when she's ordering somebody killed to make her a true adversary. The songs have been criticized, well, more so for Snow White's singing, but the lyrics are beautiful. They tell you that There's no use in finding sorrow in your trouble. You should look for sunshine, happiness. Those are the messages within the songs, particularly with the Smile in the song. There's no use in grumbling when raindrops tumbling. Remember you're the one who can fill the world with starshine. That's just such a powerful message about joy and happiness and how something like a song can really bring up your spirits. Another interesting thing about this movie is we do know where it's going most of the time. We know that Snow White can be saved for true love's kiss because of the Queen. We know Snow White is in the beds upstairs, but scenes that are related to this are still pretty intense and fascinating because the movie is largely based on the emotions of the characters. This forest scene that I previously mentioned is largely intense because we're seeing it through Snow White's eyes in fear. When she's upstairs in the beds, we know that she's up there. The dwarfs don't. But the interesting thing is how it's done through shadows and apprehension from the characters that make it pretty intense to sit through. The scene when they're rescuing her, dwarves riding on deer could have been done so comically, but at the same time, because of the stakes of the scene and how much the characters worry about her, it's done so effectively. It is a truly intense scene. And the scene when they think that she might be lost forever and they're crying, it's hard not to tear up at the thought of it too. We've seen these characters be so happy and grumpy for an hour, and now we're seeing all the pain and sorrow at losing somebody so close to them. And then when the prince comes, and then they rejoice as we all. The prince is pretty much the only downside to this movie. They don't give him time to really shine or be developed. Originally, he was going to be named Prince Buckethead after a nickname Snow White had of making a province of her own, which I assume was used as an inspiration for Enchanted later. But also, just the very thought that we see him so little makes me wonder, how did he find her? How did he know that kissing her would? The idea of the Queen kidnapping him made this make sense. That sadly is lost without these scenes in the movie. But these are minor nitpicks. Now, the audience for this movie, completely appropriate for the entire family. Young children may be frightened by certain scenes, but overall, I watched it when I was very young and it turned out fine. Would I watch it again? Well, I do a yearly Disney binge, so it's kind of essential, but outside of that, I still would watch this movie a million more times. I love it. It's a true classic. There's nothing to dislike about it. And bottom line, this deserves so much more recognition than just the first Disney movie. It's a true classic, great animation, songs, and characters that are endearing, and whatever flaws it does have can definitely be chalked up to age. If a movie lasts 80 years, I believe it truly has staying value and should be loved even more for that. Such is the case with Snow White. Thank you again for watching.